Hey YouTube, Corash1990 here, and today I have another double deck tech for the Terminator CCG. My last one was for the past scenario. This one is for the future scenario, which plays a lot differently. And honestly, I think this is where the game really flourishes, as far as for this game. Again, I'm not like a pro at this game. I just read the rules, bought a brick of starter decks, and I pretty much bought essentially a booster box worth of packs. Read through all the cards pretty diligently, and kind of came up to my own conclusions of what was good and what was not. So my opinions are probably not as streamlined as those who are like seasoned with this game. But then again, I don't know how many people actually really play this game or even know it exists. So take my deck lists with a grain of salt, basically. So in the past scenario, it's the Terminator hunting down Sarah Connor and the other people and trying to kill them before the good guys take all of the civilians they find to the police station to score points based on their importance value. In this one, Terminator player starts with a select number of Terminators in play, and they're at factory locations, and they basically generate resources like mana for magic, and they use them to build more Terminators. And the whole point of the Terminator deck is you can do one of two things. You can either generate enough killy Terminators to kill the other team, or you can generate enough Infiltrator Terminators, like, not those. Not those either, those are drones. Okay, come on. I have a bunch of them in here. Maybe it's further down. Yeah, so like these guys. And you take them to the Time Displacement Laboratory, which is kind of like the future's version of the police station. And you're trying to send Terminators into the past. And once you send enough into the past, you win the game. Or you win the game by slaughtering the other opposing team. And these guys are basically trying to stop the Terminators from doing that, is how they win. Or missions are very much a thing in this scenario. So these guys have a lot of mission cards. The Terminator missions, it didn't really seem as useful. There are some really good ones, and I play them not for the mission points you score off them, but for the long-term effects you gain from completing them, mainly being maximum production is pretty great when you get it off. Basically doubles all your resources. So I'll start things off with the more complicated deck here. Only reason why it's more complicated is because the starting character setup is pretty wide. So in the past scenario, you get, I'll stick them down here. You only get a couple of characters. You don't have any weapons or items on them. In the future scenario, you get a leader plus 3 other people, and they each start with 1 weapon or military arm. I think it's weapon or military arms. I can't remember. And they also get 1 piece of equipment. So I gave them all body armor. This guy got the Kevlar vest because he's more of a close range thing, and I also gave him an Uzi because that's really good at close range. This guy, so I'll just go off this guy first, I guess. He's my scout, and basically I want to get him to the Time Displacement Laboratory for a mission card that I have that will kind of like more or less, it doesn't really shut it down, it can, but he's like my sneaky dude, so he'll be moving around with those little infiltrator tokens, trying to not get found, and if he does get found, he has a little bit more protection and a more deadlier weapon in close combat for those scenarios. And this guy, he's my demolitions expert. He's my damage dealing guy, and so I gave him a really big bomb that does 14 damage, which is kind of insane in this game. And there are ways, hopefully you don't, destroy it, but I do have other bombs in the deck as well. And he's also as good at doing damage too. And then good old Sergeant Kyle Reese. Gave him a 12 gauge shotgun, just a good close range weapon, and he has the whole +1 to hit, all that other good stuff. And then for my leader, I have this guy, and he lets you get mission cards. And I gave him a standard issue assault rifle, and yeah, it does a lot of damage, and there's an ammo card to go on it to do even more damage. Because in this scenario, your Terminators are a lot more tanky. Like this guy, I think he's probably the best Terminator in this game, unless there's a card I haven't seen. He's nuts. Really hard to kill, the buffs everything. And the Terminators are just so tanky. Like, these guys are really hard to take down too. And I'm not even going to get into what that guy is yet. But that is my starting crew. The starting locations are... 2 of them are fixed, and I think one of them's random if I remember right. Yes. So for Resistance players, you have to have these 2 as your starters. And I chose a construction site because as my other starter I get. And basically you use it to get a Resistance dude from your deck into play, the Resistance Private. And then the Resistance Private can get rid of himself to get a medic into play. And I have 2 locations I bring in Resistance dude each time, so therefore I have 2 of them. So that is the reasoning behind those guys. And I'm doing a different camera layout. Normally I'm more straight up and down. This one I'm a little more angled and out. So let me know in the comments below if you like that more or if you want me to go back. I am also using a condition, and this increases your hand size by 2, and all of the players who don't play condition gain +3 hand size. In the future scenarios, it's better to play conditions than to not, so +2 hand size is pretty good because these guys are going to want a bigger hand to have more resources to deal with the Terminator player. So time displacement laboratory, this is one you have to have. I'm not really going to go into too much detail. You basically just send dudes into the past. It cannot do it if it's damaged. Surplus depots, more military arms stuff. So these locations, locker storeroom, notice most of them will be future or past future. So all your locations have to have at least future. These are mainly just to find military arms stuff. These other ones, you know, sure, vantage point, awesome, whatever. Get a combat pool thing, whatever that's called. Most of these are just kind of filler locations, more nighttime sneaky stuff for cover. Pretty straightforward stuff. And now for the deck, I'll get this off camera. So the whole combo with this guy being searched out with that, being searched out through the location. And I run 2 privates because I have 2 cards or 2 locations that each get a private. I have a guard dog. There's a location that gets into play. He's kind of cool. Just a little extra little bit of damage, more annoyance. Here's a backup bomb in case my other bomb gets destroyed. The ammo for the rifle, the ammo for the shotgun. My scout guy gets this, and yeah, this is where you want to go for time displacement laboratory. And you can also hack other stuff to make it more difficult for your opponent to generate resources to play the Terminators. This is the mission that goes with that scout that I was talking about. Good for mission points. So these are all mission cards, and these are all additional ways to score points, along with sending your people into the past as well. Whoever sends the most people to the past wins the game. Once you sent like 3 or more from the other player or something like that. These are, you know, blowing up stuff. Lead by example with your leader. Trench warfare, more fighting. And reconnaissance is all being about sneaky. Industrial sabotage, is this a good hate card against Terminators? What is it? Yeah, it gives anyone with demolition at a location can make that location gain the damage thing, which means it's unusable, which is pretty good. Coordinated fire, just ways to gain additional hit bonuses. Limited resources makes it harder for the Terminator player to play things. Same with power spike. Critical systems failure is more hate on Skynet players, with your hacker or programmer in particular. And yeah, you get rid of events and stuff that are played by the player. Things to make robots not hit you. Things to distract the robots so they can't hit you. Human intuition, make it harder for the robots to actually hit you. Scoot this stuff over more. Exertion is just a great pump card in this game. It's one of the best, in my opinion. +1 to hit and damage is great. Resistance players are going to need as much damage buffing as they can get because Terminators have a lot of armor. Heated fighting can also help with that because it can be played in conjunction with another damage increasing card. And desperation. If you ever have like these in your hand, you can't actually search them out with a location. I think they say search your deck, not your hand. So these are in here to shuffle these back in and to hopefully not redraw them. And yeah, that's the deck for the Resistance players. Again, it plays a lot of hate cards, and it has the mission cards that help score points as like an alternate win. You can also try sending your people into the past, but ideally you're just going to be taking the fight straight up with the Terminators while your hacker goes and kind of scores you all your points, and then your leader will also back up with scoring points as well. And typically you wouldn't run characters in your decks, you can't play them, as far as I know from the rulebook. So these are only in here because I have locations that get them out. If you don't have those locations, do not put these guys in your decks. I believe there's no physical way to put them into play. There's also cards that search your deck for location cards. I don't really understand how that works. The rulebook's not 100% clear. So I just did a simple thing and not play any of those. So now on to the Terminator deck. And I apologize for this video being a little longer, but I did want to go into more depth with this because I think there's more to it than the past scenario, which is why the past scenario video is probably going to be about half the length of what this is. So, starting characters, I'll go ahead and just lay them out. And this big beefy Terminator got all the upgrades on him. So, you get 30, I think it's 30 production points at the start of the game to spend. And for every one that you don't spend, it prevents your opponent from starting the game sooner. So the amount that I spent is enough for me and the resistance player to start on the same turn. If you spend all 30 points at the start of the game with all your starting stuff, the resistance player starts the game 2 turns ahead of you, which is pretty debilitating because that means they get a location jump on you, and they're going to get to their time. They have a chance of getting to the time displacement laboratory before you and start sending people back, and they can just like shut you out of the game pretty fast. So I kept it at the cap to where we both start at the same time. I'll go over these a little later. Same with that. So the main guy, this is my main Terminator. Once he gets his 2 bodyguards out, which I'll show once I get into the deck, him and his 2 bodyguards are going to go out and start murdering people. And this guy probably won't ever die in a game, especially if he has his 2 bodyguards with him. 4 speed, 9 power, he costs 14 production. He has armor 3, which is insane. Individual, meaning you can only have one of them. All Skynet characters gain +1 to hit, and you gain 1 combat pool for every character they kill, which is insane, because there's a lot of things that add additional hits. So you start stacking up all these like plus hit bonuses. Also, any attack declared against this guy automatically redirected to your choice of one of your characters at the same location, meaning one of his 2 bodyguards, which have ways of healing. So all damage that goes to him, let's get shrugged off to the other dude. So more often than not, your opponent's probably not even going to attack this guy while the bodyguards are out, but if they try to, you can mitigate it and then they can heal it. This eye gives him a 9 damage long range attack, which is great. It lowers his infiltration, but you really don't care because he doesn't have it. The retractable claws gives him +2 damage in melee and an additional +1 to hit if he's lethal, which he is. So that's just great. Basically 11 power in melee and 9 long range if he needs it. That alone's kind of crazy. This gives him an additional +1 armor, so armor 4. Again, that's really, really hard to get through. And this card, you can get rid of it to heal 2 damage. So good luck dealing with that guy if you're a resistance player. And so I talked about generating points, resources to spend on Terminators at factories. These are the guys that do it. So I start the game with 3 of them. Basically, they can tap to generate 1 production point each, and it's usable at the location that they're at. So you can't be like 2 points here, 2 points at this location. You have 4. No, you have 2 to spend at this one, and then you have 2 to spend at the other one. So typically try to keep all your drones in the same place. I have 2 locations that I'll put drones at, and one of them you can't actually have as your starting location because it draws you cards every time you tap dudes, which is really, really good. But they have armor 1, weak stats. They can heal damage off of location, which is great if there's 3 of them. Basically, they're just here to generate resources for you. So for the Terminator player, you have Drone Reconditioning Facility. Wow, if I could speak. And you start with Barren Wasteland. As my other location that I chose to start with, it is the Unit Construction Zone, which I didn't realize is a rare, so most people probably won't even have this. This is probably the best location for Skynet. It's insane. All your production is reduced by 3 to a minimum of 1. when you generate stuff here. So everything is 3 less here. Insane. This is where all my drones are going to go to make my Terminators. And then the other like 2 or 3 drones will go to the like data bank area or whatever to draw me cards, essentially. And for my condition, I have running battle, and I can spend 1 combat pool to play a second location for my location deck during the location step. The whole point is I want to rush out into this before the resistance player does and get my dudes there before they do. So I'll be spending all my combat pool to try and luck my way into that as soon as I can. So that is what I start out with. So resistance player starts out with a bunch of Marines, all this cool gear. I start out with 1 pretty much impossible to kill Terminator and 3 little production producing drones. Locations, pretty simple. You have to have this. The processor bank is, yeah, this is the one that makes your hand size bigger, which essentially draws more cards. More factories is to play stuff. Clean room, yeah, it's all right. These I don't really care too much about. It's the processor bank, this, and my starters. Some of these, you know, there are other factories and stuff in case then they get blown up, or just good places that I think the resistance player would play to cross over into their area. And now for the actual draw deck. So I got my Terminators set up into multiple groups. I'll go ahead and separate them out now. So this bottom chunk, ignore the gun. This bottom chunk is all of my Terminators that will be scoring me points. So these are all of the ones that I will build to send into the past. If I could, I would have every single one of them be this, because in the draw deck, you can have any number of Terminator or Skynet characters. This one cannot be attacked unless it attacks first. So the resistance player can't actually do anything against this. So unless they make it lose infiltration, but all these specific cards do that, and those are typically only good in past scenario, not future, so people probably wouldn't be playing them. Other than that, I'm kind of just dealing with what I got here. I only have 2 of them, so I'm only playing 2 of them. Or like this guy, strictly better version of that, just this is cheaper to play. This dude, he can like sneak around and stuff. Whatever, I don't really care. I'm playing it because I have it and I think it looks cool. These are my other killy Terminators. So this dude is insane. He's got a bunch of guns, armor 5, so he's almost he's unkillable. Well, he's not unkillable. He's really hard to kill. He has a 10 long-range attack that attacks multiple times. So basically, at the facility where you have all your drones making the resources, he goes there to protect them. And if anyone tries to come and kill all the drones, this dude will blow them off the table. These 2 guys are the bodyguards that I was talking about with this guy. So once these are made, these 3 amigos will stay together, and they'll run all over the place, just harassing the resistance player, trying to kill him. 4/9, you know, armor 3, its hit and speed are not reduced when taking damage. And when you play him, you gain 2 Skynet items from your deck. So the 2 you're going to give him are the additional armor and the heal. And then eventually you'll arm him with a gun that gets around like armor and stuff. It just does 2 direct damage. Over time, that's really, really good. If I had more of these, I would have the resistance player deck all start with those 2, but I only own 2 of these, so I chose to put them in here because the weapons in the resistance deck are very, very good. So try to, you know, level it out a bit. These are all of my extra drones. What is it? This guy, yes, makes you double all your production for the drones that are tapped. This guy heals damage stuff, I think. Yeah, and then I have 2 more of these. More drones, the better, because, you know, chances are I probably will die. Another strategy is you can have drones follow this guy around and he can shrug damage off to them. Personally, I like the bodyguard thing more. So that is all of that. And now I'll get into the items, which it really isn't that much. It's the 2 guns, 2 pieces of armor, and the 2 of these for the bodyguards. So that's why those are there. And for the mission cards, Compromise Stronghold, it's 3 mission points, which is kind of cool. But it's if you've had a Terminator at a starting location for 3 or more turns, you pretty much just gain 3 points. Yeah. And then this, once you score it, you double all your production points. You have to spend 25 or more in one sitting. Not that hard to do. Hopefully you get this in your opening hand, because late game, it's actually kind of hard to have enough things to spend 25 points on. If you don't have things to spend them, you can't actually spend them. And now just the old human hate. That's resistance against all your dude, like for your Terminators against humans. Ineffective weaponry, again, more resistance. Target acquired, +1 to hit and range combat, an additional +1 of marksman or veteran. This guy is either one of those, so again, stacking on the plus to hits. Nightmares just make humans, what is it? Yeah, if you tap a human and it doesn't do anything, and this one makes it to where a tapped human doesn't untap next turn. So it's more of like a control-y tap out thing to where they can't really do anything. If you have enough of them, it can almost feel kind of like a time walk. Which again, if the humans are smart and they stay together, and they all target their firepower at one Terminator, they can just start picking them off one by one. So having those cards to prevent that is, I think, essential, personally. There's other cards, there's like armor cards that are like rares. I only had like 1 copy of each of them, and preferably I would like to play, you know, my sets, like 4. But I don't own them, so I'm not playing them. And again, trying to still use cards from the starter decks too. It's nice to play cards, you know, that from my deck techs, use cards that people I think will actually have versus the horrible pull rates and booster packs for this game. But anyway, that is my future scenario deck tech videos for both Resistance and Skynet. If you have any suggestions or questions on anything, let me know. I posted actual like deck layouts for both of these in the Dead CCG Collectors group on Facebook. Just type in Terminator CCG in the search section for that group, and I'm sure it'll pop up. But thank you all for watching. If you want, like, comment, subscribe. Again, I don't really care, but if you want to, go ahead. I think it's kind of crazy. There's like 80 plus you subscribed anyway. But thank you all, and I'll catch you all next time for another video.